This is Anime Ricochet. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Ricochet, the premier anime podcast of the Nerd Blaze. With me, my name is Jeff, and with me, as always, is a man.
We've been out of the game for too long.
It's been a long time. It's been too long.
It's been a while.
Too long. Anyways,
shake the rust off. It's fine.
Let's do it again. Hello, everyone.
Okay,
Welcome to Anime Ricochet, the premier anime podcast of the Nerd Blaze. My name is Jeff, and with me, as always, is a man who I assume knows how to ride a bicycle. His name is Jacoby, a.k.a. Kobe. Welcome to the show, Kobe.
I do know how to ride a bicycle. You psychic man, you. Wow.
How fast have you ridden a bicycle before?
10.
Ah, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, it's super fast, you know?
Is that the max? I think that's the max.
Yeah, it's the max. It's the fastest I think anybody can go.
Yeah, that's
on a bike.
The speed of light is 10, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. We don't know sports animes. We don't know science. So
don't know how fast things are supposed to go. But yeah, welcome to Anime Ricochet, the podcast where two dudes who know nothing about sports talk about sports anime. And if you haven't teased it out by now, we're going to be talking about a biking anime this episode. It is called Yowamushi Pedal.
Dun dun dun. I felt like you set it up for like a cool music cue, so I felt like I had to jump on that as fast as I could.
Thanks, Kobe. You are the cool music cue in this podcast.
Forget what you said before. That is the nicest thing that you've ever said to me in this anime. That I'm the music cue guy.
Yeah, it's a compliment of highest orders. It's a 10 on the compliment scale.
Great.
So should we just jump into it, Kobe?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Yowamushi Pedal.
So Yowamushi Pedal, let's just get. I don't have any stuff on me, but basically it was.
You're the go-to guy in this. You usually know.
I know.
This is our thing. You say, "What is this?" and then you answer.
I usually have like a Wikipedia page open for this, but we haven't been doing the past couple of things, and then I set it up to where it seemed like I was going to talk about it. But let's just talk about the characters. Let's start there.
Okay.
So,
but what is? Don't we need to know what Yowamushi Pedal is?
Oh my god!
Or anything like that?
This is not going well. Okay, let's talk about Yowamushi Pedal. It is a biking anime. There's 2 seasons.
I got it.
Yes,
Yowamushi
Kobe, save me.
It's a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Wataru Watanabe. It began serialization in the 12th issue of Akita Shoten's Weekly Shonen Champion in 2008, and as of January 5th, 2018, has published 54 compiled volumes. That is a lot of volumes about biking. The anime series began airing on October 7th, 2013, and currently has a few seasons out there, both in North America. There's a live-action television drama adaptation, which would be interesting to check out.
I've never heard of that. That's cool.
Yeah, there's a 3rd season that aired on January 10th, 2017, and a 4th season began airing in January 2018. For the purposes of this podcast, we are going to be focused on the first 2 seasons, which is just Yowamushi Pedal and then Yowamushi Pedal Grande Road.
Ariana Grande Road.
I kept thinking it was Grande, but it's like I don't think that's how they would pronounce it.
Maybe. Grande Road? The Grande Road? Anyways, so it was the manga. See, I can pick up a little bit from here. The manga was written by Wataru Watanabe, and if you Google his name, it's him in the Sohoku jersey riding a bike. So
this is his magnum opus.
I guess so. Yeah.
Fancy thing.
I mean, it looks like he's actually a biker, so he knows a lot about the subject. And I think you can tell a lot from the anime once we'll talk about it. And then the anime was directed by Osamu Nabeshima. And there's a picture of him, and he's wearing the purple team jersey, which is the evil team.
The evil team with
Kyoto Fushimi or something like that. There's a lot of names in this, a lot of characters in this, but
there's Hakone Academy, which is not, and Kyoto Fushimi is the bad school. Those are the 3 names.
There we go. Hakone, Sohoku, Kyoto.
All right. So now that we have a proper introduction to the world of Yowamushi Pedal,
took way too long.
Now we can move on to the characters themselves. Who is the protagonist of Yowamushi Pedal?
The protagonist is Onoda Sakamichi, and he's the wonder boy of this show. And I grew to really love the guy as the show went on. I think he's a very unique sports anime protagonist because usually in a sports anime, your main dude is already like well into the sport, has a passion for it, and has some special ability for it. Onoda, on the other hand, he's a guy who didn't really want anything to do with biking when the anime starts. He's already sort of a really good biker, but that's sort of just because he visits Akihabara from his home, and it's like a really far away. It's like a super far distance. Basically,
90 kilometers away.
Yeah, the idea is like he's this nerd guy, right? And he's into anime. He's an otaku basically. And when he goes to high school, he wants to start up an anime club because he wants some friends to watch anime with and all that stuff.
Just the purest intentions.
Yeah,
he's so sweet. He is a sweet character.
He is a sweet little boy, and that's kind of what endeared me to him initially. And as the anime goes on, he kind of meets these other bikers, and he eventually gets wrangled into this this crazy world of road racing, and he eventually learns to love it, and it becomes one of his other passions in life alongside anime. And yeah, I think he's a really cool character.
He is a really interesting protagonist, like you said. We don't see a lot of them like him before because usually these protagonists are more, I don't know, they're not as bad at things as Onoda is, but Onoda really is kind of a dork, and he's kind of goofy, and he's soft spoken, and he's very sweet. But then he has this untapped potential within him because he's been riding a bike every day to Akiba, every week to Akiba because he loves anime so much. And for a character to get so good at a sport because of something completely unrelated as just like a stepping stone to get to anime, like if nobody ever told him that he had the potential to be a great biker, he never would have discovered it himself. Like he would have just kept going on about anime. And what I like about him as a protagonist is that we really see his first introduction to the sport. Like a lot of sports animes, they'll start off right off the bat. The first episode will have the character be like, "Yeah, I kind of want to be this biker," but it takes a few episodes for Onoda to finally get going, to start liking the sport, and then to eventually join the club. The show likes to take its time, which is both to its faults and to its credit. But like it's very paced out. Nothing ever feels rushed. But on the other side, there's like 56 episodes in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
But at the heart of everything, no matter how long the show goes, there is Onoda, who is, I think, a great protagonist.
Yeah, it's refreshing to see a sports anime where we kind of learn about the sport alongside the main character, as opposed to like, I mean, we do see that in other sports animes, even when the main character is experienced with it. But it's cool to have like an entry point character into the sport that we can sort of learn alongside of, as opposed to just being like, it feels like we're not the only outsider in the show when we're watching this. And that's the other cool thing about Onoda is he is like an outsider to the sport. He's sort of the oddball, both in terms of his personality and I guess his unusual skill and his attitude, basically. Because a lot of these other characters in the show, they're kind of your typical sports anime types. They're very competitive. They're very good at what they do. They have this thirst to win, that kind of thing. Whereas Onoda is sort of set apart because he kind of does it for like the joy of it, and the joy of it, but also doing it for his friends, because sort of a through line through the show is that he's always wanted friends to hang out with, and he didn't get it in his anime club, but instead he got it with this bike club, and through that he's sort of he's basically racing to sort of support the rest of his team. So,
and that's it. That's the whole anime. You basically summed up the 60 episodes in one line, that he finds friendship, because that is the thing for everything.
Yeah.
Now, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, friendships is kind of like it's a cliche theme in a lot of, I guess, animes, but in sports animes in general. But in this one, I really liked it. I like the relationship between the characters a lot more. I think Onoda has a lot to do with it because he is that sort of outsider type, and he's sort of a sweet young boy, sweet lovable boy that you really just want to root for. And so when the relationships between him and the other characters are developed, it's always fun to watch. It gives you a warm feeling in your heart.
Yeah, this definitely is the anime where I most feel like friendship is at the forefront, and friendship actually like makes sense. We've watched some other animes where it's just like friendship is important, friendship is the key, but we don't really see that. We don't really see that in effect. We're just told that and it works, but like it just totally works in this one, which makes it I think worth a watch.
Indeed. So
I don't even know how to begin describing the rest of these characters, because there's at least about 100 others to go to, and all of them have these in-depth backstories, and we could devote a whole episode just talking about this episode. We could devote 2 episodes devoting about all these characters.
yeah, I think we could do well with just talking about 2 more characters. They'd be, I would guess, would sum up. They would be like the main trio of the story, but like you said, there's a shit ton of characters. There's a lot of, it's weird to even call them like side characters, because some episodes they feel like the main characters because they devote pretty much all the time and attention to like a character that you would never think that you'd learn so much about. Even characters that you don't expect to give such deep backstories are characters that you get to learn a lot more than you would think or even want sometimes.
Yeah, basically think of it on these races that they go to. There's the big race that they go to. There's a 6-man team, 5-man team, 6-man team,
6-man team, yep.
6-man team on each, and this anime devotes time basically to mostly all of them. Like gives enough time to shine for basically all of these characters, and gives them a chance to basically learn their backstories for at least 3 teams. And then there's a plethora of side characters and other supporting characters. But you're right. We'll focus on the main 3 here, the one that should be at the forefront of this. So who is next up on our character list?
Next up on the list, next character we're introduced to in this anime is Imaizumi Shunsuke. And I know I fucked up his name, but basically we've talked about like this duality a lot in the show, that there's like usually a cool-headed dude and then like a hot-headed dude, and they're like at odds with each other. So in that pairing, Imaizumi would be the cool-headed dude. He's a tall, lean, sort of a brooding, cool guy,
Super popular with the ladies.
Yeah, super popular with the ladies. That seems to be like the type. The type that gets all the girls in Japan. It's like you got to be like a mysterious, cool dude that's good at sports or school or something.
So we would not be that type.
No. I wouldn't. I mean, you're a tall dude. You could probably have a chance.
I am tall, but then I open my mouth and then you realize how not cool I am. So I think that's my problem.
We would not fit that cool guy stereotype. We'd be Anodas, I guess, maybe. A couple of Anodas.
Sometimes you're Imaizumi, sometimes you're Onoda.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the way the cookie crumbles.
Imaizumi, he's a very cool-headed guy, a very level-headed competitor, and he is a competitive type. When he meets Onoda, he notices that Onoda, like basically they're going up this really steep hill, and he's surprised that Onoda is catching up with him because Onoda's kind of like riding this really shitty mommy bike. And Imaizumi has like his super sleek, super thin road racer. And after seeing this, it piques his interest and his curiosity, and he challenges Onoda to a race. And the conditions are, if Onoda wins, he's going to join the anime club. And then I forgot what happens if Imaizumi wins. What is he? I don't know what the stakes were on the other side. I forgot.
There was not. It was just like because he didn't want to race him, and he's like, "Oh, well, if you race me and I lose, then I'll join the anime club with you."
Right. That's right.
And Onoda's reaction was great because he was just like, "I'm finally gonna have someone to join the club with me." It's like, what? You don't even consider, like you just think you're gonna win, like just like that?
Yeah. And on the surface, I think Imaizumi by himself is kind of a generic, bland character. He has a rivalry with another character in the show, which was I think executed okay. I wasn't really invested in it. He gets a little more interesting when he shows when he sort of casts off his level-headed persona and he gets more like wild and like actually animated. But what really makes him stand out to me is really his relationship with Onoda. I think is one of my favorite relationships in all of the sports animes we've seen. There's little subplot scenes at the end of every single episode, and I think every single anime should do this because it's really cool. It's basically like these little 1 minute character building moments. They're sort of like one-off things. They really don't matter to the story at all, but it's really fun to watch. Sometimes it's like funny moments. Sometimes it's like slightly dramatic. Usually it's comedic. In Imaizumi's case, his subplot episodes at the end are basically dealing with him slowly learning to like anime because Onoda like kind of like he basically tells him to watch like these first 2 episodes or whatever of like his favorite anime. And as the subplot progresses, you see Imaizumi like slowly getting more and more on board. He gets to learn. He knows the words to the theme song. He's like going with him on movies, and he's just it's super fun to watch, and it makes the relationship even more endearing because it's like Imaizumi has this effect on Onoda, but Onoda also has this effect on Imaizumi. So it's like this really cool guy character facade kind of crumbles away as he slowly becomes a dork like Onoda.
It
It's
is,
great.
especially played out over like 60 episodes and like 30-second little clips. It's just a great progression. But what I really like about Imazumi and his relationship with Onoda, because you're absolutely right, their relationship is very strong. Sometimes it's not super. Sometimes it's very subtle, but because it doesn't have to be super flashy at times. But what I like about it is a lot of times with these characters like Imazumi is that he'll start off as very standoffish, like mean, basically, like looks down upon someone who doesn't do what he does. And then there's like a hint of that, but it's not at the surface. He's not a dick. He's not a bad guy at the beginning and slowly doesn't learn. He's generally a good guy who's just interested with Onoda. And even though he's cold and cool and like seems very standoffish at first, it's like he's really a normal dude. Like he'll never get super angry. He's not hot headed. He's just he's quiet and he's very intense and he's dedicated to cycling, but he'll never look down upon somebody for trying their hardest and for he doesn't have to be convinced that Onoda has what it takes after he sees him again. Like he's like, oh, you shouldn't, that was a fluke, you shouldn't be here, this sport is only for people who are serious, how could you do this? No, as soon as Onoda and him race at the beginning, he's fully on board. It's like their friendship is able to grow into something that's just fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that I like about this show is that generally it's a good point because if it were any other sports anime, I feel like he would be the kind of character that'd be like, this guy is he just maybe he cheated or maybe he got lucky and now he's gonna be my rival and I have to prove that I'm better than him kind of thing. What's cool about Onoda being the main character is that his relationship with his teammates it's very pure and it's very much as we said before, friendship driven. So it's kind of refreshing to see that there's like a very nice camaraderie between Onoda and the other team members, and that really comes to fruition. I think especially between Onoda and Imaizumi because it kind of shows that, as you said, Imaizumi is not completely a cold-hearted asshole. He's a very confident person, but he's not cocky, he's standoffish, but he's not mean. So
It's so fascinating. I think I wouldn't like to watch Imazumi like have his own show, like have a spin-off, unless it's him watching anime and little things, so maybe that'd be fun. But like by himself, you're right, because you mentioned before, I don't think he's that interesting. But just his interactions, his relationships with both Onoda and the other main character that we're going to be talking about is it just makes him really strong. Like makes him very important to the series and makes the show just elevates it just that much more.
Indeed. And the next character in this little trio, he is the hothead of the pair. He's got red hair. It's I have to say this every single time. It's sort of like a trope at this point. It's like there's two characters, right? One of them has like red hair. The other one has got black hair. And then one of them is short. The other one's tall. It's kind of like a Hinata Kageyama relationship going on, dynamic. Yeah. So basically the Hinata, the hothead type, his name is Naruko Shokichi. And he's exactly what I said before. He's hot-headed, he's loud, he's boisterous, he loves attention. That's like his
spunky
thing. He's a spunky kid. He loves to stand out. Like that's his thing. And I guess we should have mentioned like the superpowers of each of the characters, but basically
we'll get into that with the sports. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. But yeah, basically Naruko, his motivation for biking and winning is so that he can stand out and everyone can like cheer for him and love him and that kind of thing. And again, on his own, he's kind of a generic character, but his relationship with Onoda is what makes him likable, because you would think that Naruko is kind of the guy. In the beginning, I was kind of worried that he would be kind of the guy that was like, a sort of hot-headed dude that doesn't really have any regards for anyone else, because he was sort of acting that way. But once you see Naruko and Onoda and their relationship grow throughout the series, Naruko's kind of like, I guess the best way to put it is Naruko and Imazumi, they're both like the big brothers of Onoda. Like they're both there to take care of him and to bring out the best in him and cheer him on and that kind of thing. And the rivalry that exists in the show is between Naruko and Imazumi. And I think that's a really cool dynamic that we don't really see in a lot of animes, in sports animes especially. And yeah, generally he's a pretty cool character.
What I think is, and as you said, what I think is great about the rivalry between Naruko and Imazumi is that how similar they actually are. Like usually they're rivalries like this, you have the cool-headed character and then your hot-headed character be at odds with each other, like always arguing about how to do things, always arguing about something because they're at odds. But no, their rivalry comes because even though they seem so different, they're basically the same person. Like they are always thinking the same exact thing. But it's that mindset of being the same person that draws out the best in each of them, because they don't want to lose to the other person. They want to prove that they're better, but they can't because they're the same. And it's crazy to say that these characters are basically the same because they're also so different. It's a great balance this show does that you can get away with saying both things really, that yes, they're exactly the same, but yes, they're also really different characters and they stand on their own. And that's what's great about all these characters in this show. I think all these characters are really fully fleshed out and developed really well, where every interaction, like every pairing that you have, like Onoda with Imazumi pairs a great relationship, like brings something out, something that you don't see. But Onoda with Naruko is also another great relationship when it's fleshed out. Imazumi and Naruko together are a great relationship. There's like different aspects that we don't see. It never feels like it's one writer writing the same lines for each character. Every character feels just well developed in their own sense, and that they would say what that character would be thinking.
Yeah, and I think that's... Go ahead, man.
Yeah, just again, and like at the center are these three main characters: Onoda, Imazumi, and Naruko.
Yeah, and so basically, the real strength of the characters of the show is the relationships between them. So we just talked about the trio and how well the connections between them are very well developed and very strong. But there are, like Kobe said, like at least dozens of other characters, and you see combinations of relationships and interactions between a huge array of them. And so there's like this complex web of connections between all these characters, and the interactions that they have with each other makes this anime I think the backbone of what makes this anime so entertaining to watch, because you have all these disparate, very unique, fleshed out personalities, and the way they clash or the way they integrate with each other is always fun to watch. And I think that's the strongest point of this show.
I think so too, and something that I just think we haven't seen in any of the other animes that we watched.
Yeah, I think
as done. There's sure this anime has. I'm not saying like this is the best anime we've ever seen before, because it does have its flaws and stuff. But just this aspect of it about the characters' relationships with one another, and how all of them have interesting relationships with all these characters, is just something I could see more of. Like I would like to see incorporated better in more animes.
Yeah, basically it's a big cast and they implement it very well.
Yes, that is basically the gist of. We could have just said that.
Let's just end the podcast. Let's get out of here.
Bye, everyone.
But yeah, so that's the character section. How about we talk about the sports, Gobi? The actual sport of road racing itself.
Oh my God, was I just unprepared by what road racing actually was? Like I would imagine, going into road racing, you start from point A, you get to point B. That's it, right? There's that was basically my knowledge going in there. I never understood how races could go on for so long, how races could stretch like days. That never made sense to me, or like the different segments. But man, is there more to this sport than I thought?
Yeah, and this is what I love about watching sports animes, is when a sports anime can really teach you about the sport, and also when you can kind of feel the passion of the person who made the sport coming through to the show. And I think that really is I think that's what the show has, is there's a passion for road racing, and it makes for a really good show. And when it goes into the details of the sport itself, as you said, we kind of learn about the intricacies of it. Like one of the most fascinating things that I never knew about road racing was because at first I was like, a team, like why do you need a team in road racing? It seems like a very individual sport. But in the show, a big part of it is like carrying the team as you're racing through the track. So basically when you line up the racers and they're kind of like within proximity of each other, you kind of like block the wind resistance in the front so that the riders in the back can use less work. And then like I guess there's sort of like this draft effect where like you're also being basically literally pulled along by the front rider, and then they kind of
Yeah.
rotate so that you save stamina over these long periods of racing. And I think the same concept applies to like birds, like when birds fly in triangles, or that arrow formation they do. I think it's the same thing, and I just thought that was so cool. And yeah, there's just a lot more to road racing than I figured.
Yeah, basically there's a team of 6, but if one person crosses the finish line of that team, your whole team wins. Then your school wins. And again, I thought the same thing as you. It's like, why do you need 6 people then? Then doesn't it not matter? What's the point of a team if whoever crosses, then the whole team wins? But the show really does a good job of showing you why teamwork's important, why they value the individual is important in each different section, and why the overall team is great in sports. I think it's the only anime that we've seen that both highlights both the individual and the team so well at the same time. Usually you get like one or the other, like, oh, the strength is the individual, or no, the strength is the team. But no, this one is the strength is the individual and the strength is the team. Like it's all of it.
Yeah, there is this perfect mix of team play and individual strengths shining through. And I think that's just perfect for the characters that we have in the show, especially Onoda. He's the guy that's, all about friendship and stuff. And the fact that this is actually a very team-centric sport is it ties well with his character. Basically, he's the kind of guy that will pick up people that are left behind. He's the kind of guy that will encourage you to keep going. And not only that, but as we said, there's a lot more to biking than we thought. There's a lot more strategies and tactics than I thought. Like,
yeah,
basically, I would say up to the last 5 to 10 episodes or so, they were still sort of surprising me with what they could pull out in terms of like strategies and tactics, which was very cool. I mean, usually I thought like a 60 plus episode anime of biking would get really boring really fast, but actually they managed to pull out a lot of drama in the sport as well. Like there's in the beginning there's like little stakes even that make it interesting. Like there's like this race that goes uphill, and even then you're learning about the sport, like pedaling, RPMs and stuff, like how fast you're cycling, and the kind of
all the different gears and stuff.
The different gears, and the strategy that some riders use to climb up hills. Overall, I would say very good representation of the sport in this anime.
Yeah. So basically, correct me if I'm wrong about how like a normal cycling race would work. Basically, there'd be a team of 6, and you'd have really 2 sections, like a sprinter section and then like a climbing section. And like each rider is different from what their skills are. Some of them are going to be really good at sprinting, and you're trying to win like basically the first checkpoint, the sprinting section. And then there's the climbing section where you have your best climbers come to try to beat that climbing section. And basically they go back and forth like that. It's like different checkpoints over the course of however long the race is until you reach the end.
Yeah, basically, and even the checkpoints, I think themselves, I think those are mostly a pride thing. Like, oh, our team
Absolutely
got
it is.
this sprinter checkpoint. Because you get these special tags when you pass these certain checkpoints. If you pass the sprinter checkpoint first, you get the sprinter tag. Climbing checkpoint first, you get the climbing tag. But also, it's psychological. There's a big psychological component to the sport as well. And one of them being, these stickers that the teammates get. So, like, if you're riding behind a team that has, like, the sprinter or the climbing checkpoint sticker, it sort of gives you, like, an aura or, like, a presence. Like, hey, look at me. I won yesterday's checkpoint, So, basically, it makes you, it gives you kind of like a fear factor kind of thing. Like, oh, don't mess with this guy, or this guy's going to beat me kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the show did a great job of convincing me about why that's actually important. Because obviously I went into it, I don't know if you went into it too like this, but it's just like, what does it matter, all these checkpoints? All it matters is who crosses the finish line at the very last day. Like, these things don't really matter at all. But no, they actually do a good job, because you're right, it is a pride thing about why that's important. It is a psychological thing. It's also, after 3 days, it's like a lot of the week will be cut out. Like, there won't be enough. You're tired from those first few days of struggling, and you have to finish after a certain time in order to keep going. And and it shows that who has the strength to keep going forward, to prove that you really are strong. So it's like, man, that is important. But before, I was totally like, this is kind of lame. Like, why are they trying going all out for like one checkpoint at the very beginning when this is like a 3-day race?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't seem that important to me. But
yeah.
over time, it won me over.
And to be fair, too, that is actually a good point, is that it really actually doesn't matter, because there are teams in the big race that don't care about the checkpoints, that, you know, reserve their strength until the very last day to win the whole race, because they don't actually go for the checkpoints. They kind of hang in the back. And then, yeah, there's one team in particular that employed that strategy, and you don't see them until the very the last day of the race. So
Which is great, and that's great, because that's like a 6-episode arc that like turns this anime into kind of like a horror movie. Like, this turns into like an action adventure, like just with those guys. Like, they infuse this whole new tone with it, and I just had to bring that up because it's really cool.
And there is a horror tone that peaks its head eventually. Even before that, it's just sort of present throughout the whole anime, especially during the race. But I think we'll talk about later when we get to the villain section. But in terms of like the matches, in terms of the races themselves, so basically this show has like one big race, and then there's of course like a training camp section, so that's kind of like a race in itself. And then there's
But oh man, was I so surprised to find out. Yeah, because basically the first season's 38 episodes, and we were really only planning to only do, you know, the first season basically until, you know, you get to episode 20, and then like the big race begins. And then it just goes on for basically the next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
The rest of the show, the next 2 seasons, is all this one 3-day race. It's just crazy.
Yeah, which I thought I was going to drag out for that long, because when I came into it, I was like, man, how are they going to make this interesting for that long? And I think they did a fairly good job of keeping it interesting for that long. I would say my only critique is, I think towards the end, it seemed like they're kind of running out of stuff to show us. But even throughout, it was sort of like, okay, this is cool. I mean, it's really the characters and the little dramatic moments and little problems that the little wrenches they throw into the works to keep it interesting.
We're praising this sport a lot for like its depiction of cycling, and that's true. But it's like, to bring it down like a peg, it is some of those episodes, like, it doesn't need to be almost 60 episodes. Like, you're right. At the end, they kind of repeat the same stuff over. It's like, oh, what's going to happen? He'll probably think that he needs to go faster, and then go faster. And then that'll go for like 2 episodes, 3 episodes.
So to its credit, but also to its critique, I guess you should say, I can say, is that it wasn't until the very end when I realized, holy shit, this anime is literally just about one thing. And that one thing is person A catches up to person B. Person B goes faster. Then person A catches up to person B, and it's basically just like a cat and mouse game. Like, they basically outpace each other, and then some dramatic thing happens, and then that person outpaces each other. So in terms of like those little race moments, well, I guess I shouldn't say little, because a lot of the show is actually that. In terms of that, like, you know me, I like tactics and all that, and the cycling I think was represented well. But in terms of those little moments, it was sort of like, oh, that's it. Like, you know, basically the way they pass each other is they pedal really, really fast, or they scream. It's very Dragon Ball Z in a way. They go like, ha, and then like they pedal really, really fast, and then they catch up, and then the other person's like, what? Nani? Whoa. He passed me? Yeah. And then he goes on his own little thing, and then he starts.
Yeah, he goes, haha, actually, I knew you were going to do that. Now I'm going to pass you.
Honestly, the whole show is basically like that, but I didn't actually notice that until the very end, I think. So
because the characters were so strong.
Exactly, the characters were so strong, and overall, it was still enjoyable to watch. And because there were little things, little tactic things, I guess, that kept it going. So yeah, I would say that the matches were really well. Even the little races, even one of the first races is like very low stakes. It's just like a personal thing. Even then, I was very invested in it, and even like the practice races, I thought were really fun to watch. So I think every single race in this show had its own had its entertainment value for one reason or another, and I think that's great. I think it's solid.
Yep, agreed.
So yeah, moving on to the antagonists of the show. I think every sports anime has a great villain. Fortunately, this show has several, I think, great villains. antagonists.
And they all range. There's like they're either downright evil or they're like, mirrored two sides of the same coin villain. Like there's a whole host of villains on your level of villainy. Like take your pick. Like
yeah,
like there's something for everyone.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's like a spectrum. It's like it ranges from like friendly rival to psychotic madman,
demon spider lizard thing.
Yeah, that thing. So yeah, I think let's talk about him. He's kind of the main villain of the series. His name is Miro Suji. He's on the Kyoto Fushimi team, the purple team, one of the three main teams. He is bizarre and in a great way, I think. When I saw this guy for the first time in the show, because his introduction is great and his character design is great. He's basically this really tall, lanky, wide-eyed, big, beautiful white teeth, but very scary in a way. Like he's like a monster, basically. That's the way they portray him. He's a monster. And when I saw this guy, I'm like, ew. But also, this is why I love anime. It's like, what other medium can you have where like it's a sports anime about cycling, and then you have this kind of creature like that stands out, doesn't fit in at all, but still you believe it for some reason?
I was totally thrown through a loop. Like when he has like a huge monologue when he's first introduced, and like the sound effects is like scary, and he's pale, and he's like bending over, and like there's cracks, and he's like, and he has like a creepy tongue, and he doesn't seem human. I was like shouting at the screen, like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what am I watching right now? Like it like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it almost took me over the edge of like unbelievability. It's like almost took me out of it for a second. I was just like, this dude is this doesn't
Too
fit
much.
at all with what we established like these first few episodes, like these first episodes. Like nobody is like this at all. I had no warning that characters could be like this in this anime, like from the rules. But then then he turned into just a disgusting thing, and I loved it. It brought me to the edge, and then I full on just embraced Mitsuji.
Yeah,
he's just creepy as fuck.
So up to the point of his introduction, the anime is fairly grounded. Probably the only fantastical thing is how fast these people pedal on their bikes. But it's a sports anime. It's like you would expect that.
Their rivalries are the same. Like there's other people who are dedicated to cycling, basically.
And then this fucker comes along, and yeah, you're right. Like, I think they could have easily gone over the edge and maybe made this anime worse than what it was. But I think somehow they pulled it off, and I think his presence kind of brought this anime to a new level, because in all the sports anime we've seen so far, there's never been a villain that's literally like a monster, because that's what he is. He's basically just a monster. The way he's shaped, the way he moves, the way he talks, the sound effects, the music, his soundtrack, it's amazing. And I think he's probably one of the best sports anime villains in a while. He'd definitely be up there. I think he'd be in like top 3 for me personally.
I think so too, but it's just like, again, the show's length helps it out, because I think in between the first and the second season, he hits like a low point basically, where it's just like, I'm kind of tired of this dude, and I don't understand his motivation right now. Like what's he even doing? But then just because it bombards us for so much with him, it brings me back around. Just like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm interested in him again.
Yeah, because as we said before, there are backstory elements to basically every single character of the show, and that includes Minosuji. So this guy who is completely unsympathetic, that's the thing too, his personality too is very evil. Like, he uses his teammates, he calls them Zaku, small fry, he refers to them as numbers.
The best way to describe his style of playing is that he'll tell somebody while they're racing that, oh, you number 4? Oh, I heard your mom died. Like, they were just saying, like, number 4's mom died. Like, you should go do something about that.
There we go. That's a very good descriptor. He is very fucked up. And even this fucked up character has a backstory. And even he is worthy of at least a shred of sympathy. Because once we learn a little bit more about him and, like, his backstory, his motivation, he's still an asshole afterwards. And that's what I like about it too, is like they give him this backstory and they give him some amounts of, maybe he's not really a bad guy, but even after that, he's like back to his usual evil fucking self. And I think I think that was a good move, as opposed to, suddenly he's good.
He's sympathetic, but there's no redemption.
Exactly.
Usually it doesn't. Usually, if we learn a character sympathetic, then he'll have this tragic kind of ending, and then he turns into a good guy. It's like, nope. he's something that you care about him for a second, like, oh, you kind of understand where he's coming from, but then he's just evil incarnate again.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that they sort of kept him this evil monster thing. And outside of him too, like the rival teams. So there's two other rival teams, and then there's that one rival team that kind of shows up towards the end. They all have their own backstories too. They're each 6-man team. We get to learn all about them and what makes them tick, and like you said, there's a whole range of them. So I don't know how deep we want to go on this, but basically, I like the antagonists in this show.
Me too. I'll say this, because the other team, because our team, our main characters on Sahoku High School, and then like they're kind of their biggest rivalry is with Hakone Academy, and they're like, they're the champions before that, and they're the really strong team, and basically think of it as every person on the 6-man team, on our own team has an interesting relationship with somebody on Hakone, has a parallel relationship, has something they can learn, and has like a rivalry with somebody else, and it's all explored really beautifully. But then the best parts of this anime, I think, are when both Sahoku Academy and Hakone Academy and Midasuji are all going at it together, like when it's like a 3-pronged attack of obstacles of different people racing. It's never just one-on-one. It's usually, it's like it's one-on-one, because there's so much going on and so much interaction between all of these characters.
Yeah, and again, its strength is in the complex web of interaction between the characters, because the cast is so big and because the characters are so well developed. They can sort of combo up like weird combinations of characters or combinations of characters that make sense, and it makes I think that's what the anime has, is like the staying power and the ability to make this super long race entertaining for a long period of time because the cast is so huge. Like if it was just the 6 characters of Sahoku and then maybe like one rival team, it probably wouldn't have been enough, but they went all out. They had a huge cast and they pulled it off. So yeah, the antagonists are great. The team itself is great as well. The other 3 characters of Sahoku.
Because again, it goes back to what we said at the beginning. It is all about these characters' relationships with one another, and everyone's relationship with one another is just really strong.
Friendship. That's the
friendship.
Thing. So yeah.
As long as I have you and all of my friends, I'm invincible.
There we go.
The lyrics of the classic Love Hime.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't connect that. So yeah, let's talk about the animation. What do you anything to talk about in terms of the animation?
You know what? Like, if there's really, I don't have anything. I can't.
I think the one.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about the
good.
animation itself.
It's solid. There's one. I think one technique they used, which I think was interesting, was they kind of use some 3D animation sometimes. Like if you notice the bikers, they're not hand drawn. It seems like they use some kind of weird 3D thing to make them move, and I think, I guess they do it to sort of lend it a good perspective, because they usually do that when like you're framing it from the back or framing it from the front, and I guess it gives it like a good sense of movement, and also hand drawing them moving back and forth as they're moving down a track is probably very expensive, so they use this technique instead. So yeah, there's not really much to say in terms of that department, I think.
Yeah, I would like to say they played with styles, I would say, at like one point. Again, and we mentioned kind of earlier, there's like this moment in the second season where it turns into kind of like a horror anime in a sense. Like the theme and the aura around it is just like there's a huge herd of people, because basically the race that we're talking about teams of 6. This is a 100-man race, 120 people or 112 people. That's how many people there are.
Shit ton of people.
Yeah, there's a shit ton of people in these races, so it's a huge amount. And in the second season, they explore the pack of 100 or 99 people or so, like moving together as one, and it turns into like this monster, into this like gigantic snake that like threatens to swallow our protagonist whole. And the way they shoot it and they animate it makes it seem like a very different anime. Yeah. Makes it seem like when these characters are absorbed in the pack, they're dead.
Yeah.
They're gone. Like they got eaten by this creature, and sometimes they sacrifice themselves to go, run, pedal faster. Like it's a weird detour into like a completely different tone, but it like works, because like when you go on for so long, for like close to 60 episodes, you want to play with your animation just like a little bit.
Yeah, spice it up with giant snakes.
Yeah. With giant snakes, yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah, and there's other moments too towards the end when racers start to fall out one by one. They kind of have like death scenes, like some of them, like basically they're like they pass out because of exhaustion or whatever, or they kind of fall behind, and that's all because but the way that they dramatize that moment is they make it seem like these characters are literally going to die, and
Yeah.
in a way they kind of die in terms of the race because they're out of the race. But I just thought that was kind of funny, but also the way they executed it was it was well executed.
But I was totally into it. Like,
Yeah, I
it's
was
like
into it,
if the show was executed in a different way, that would have been really corny and stupid. But I was just like, oh man, I'm like, no, they're
Yeah,
gone,
exactly.
they're gone forever.
Yeah, and then the soundtrack. I think I like the soundtrack of the show. When
I just don't remember it very much.
I remember one song, two songs. There's one that goes like dun 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 dun.
Okay, yeah.
And then there's one where it goes. I think this is Onoda's theme song. It goes like dun 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 dun. They play that a lot, and it's always like inspired. Like, oh, look at Onoda. He's such a sweet boy helping out his team. But yeah,
he is so sweet, man.
He is very sweet.
Excuse me, pardon me, sorry.
Yes.
Can we just?
Do you
can
like
we go
anime?
a little faster? Do you like anime?
He's the kind of guy that I'd want as a friend. He's that kind of cool guy.
Yeah, I would love to be his friend. I'd love to be any of these people's friends, really.
Yeah.
Except for Mitsuji.
Yeah, he's weird now. So shall we enter spoiler territory?
Ooh, let's do it. We're entering spoiler. We're rushing. We're sprinting into spoiler or climbing into spoiler
Sprinting
territory.
/ climbing into spoiler territory. If you want to skip this, there'll be timestamps in the description.
Time code.
Yeah.
Timestamp.
So yeah, we're entering spoiler territory in 3, 2, 1, and
boom!
Wow, we're in spoiler zone.
Hime. Princess.
I love. Okay, this is how I knew the anime was going to end, but when it happened, I was so pleasantly surprised by it too because I totally forgot about it. It's a 60 episode anime, and it ends when he takes everyone to freaking Akiba and he buys everyone toys and they're nerding out. Well, he's nerding out that he has finally his friends to go to this nerd city with, and I thought that was great.
That's all he wanted, and he got it,
Yeah.
and it was so fulfilling.
It was great, and oh man, I just and the subplot too with Imaizumi. We mentioned this in the non-spoiler section, but I think that's really my favorite part of the show. Like if it was sort of if it was more of that, and then like the biking was like the subplot at the end, I feel like I could watch that still.
I could watch all of this. What was your? Do you have a favorite ending of one that you remember?
The one that I remember, I think it was when Imaizumi was first like starting to get into it. Like it shows because before this Imaizumi, he's watching these little skits and he's like, I don't understand it. But the one that I think stands out to me was when he's watching it again for the second time, and it's just like they show just the Love Hime episode, and then it pans out, and then it's Imaizumi, and you think he's just gonna be like, I don't get it, but instead he's like, she's working hard. I gotta work hard too for the practice camp or whatever. But yeah, I love that because that was the first hint of him actually getting into it, and that's when I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be great," and it was great. What about you?
My favorite subplots were the one that we found out that that Kinjo, the captain, the stone face, the leader, like we have to, we're gonna win, like just like the Rock, the Rock of all rocks, basically of team captains. Yeah, he's basically Dwayne Johnson,
a skinny, lean Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, a young Dwayne Johnson is Kinjo in high school.
Mm-hmm.
When you find out that Kinjo does magic, it's just
that is so
it's great. Like because he takes it so seriously, but he's like, but he dresses in the tuxedo and like he has a special talent, and it's just
it's such a random thing, but it makes the anime richer, like, and it makes sense that these are just sort of like one-off things at the end of the episode. Because they really have no bearing on the story, but like the reason I feel like every anime should do this is because these little moments, they connect you to these characters a lot more. Like
absolutely,
like Kinjo knowing magic tricks, and like they were kind of like him, Makishima, and Tadakoro, like they're all like magicians, like showmen of some sort. That just makes me like them more for some reason.
And it gives more times with all these characters. Same with Hakone Academy, how you found out the stone face, like when he tried to be cool, like with the ladies, and he just scared them off.
It humanizes them.
Yeah, or like even more of the because we've just talked about the first years, but there's also there's second years that aren't really explored and third years, but like the second years really get a good subplot and like shows their relationship really well
Mm-hmm.
in these little tiny subplots about how well they know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and just all of that. Like these subplots are great. You're right. Every anime should do this.
Yeah, and then there was the one with the green team guy. I forgot his name, but the guy that was leading the giant pack. Because it was right after we learned about his backstory about like he lost a race because he cracked the water bottle.
That was so fucking dumb.
It was so yeah. It was basically he loses the race because he cracked both his water bottles and all the water pours out. And at the moment that when they present that, it's so dramatic. It's like, oh man, what despair! And then at the very end, the one-off clip at the end of the episode is him, and he's like at like this. He's like making this metal thing or whatever, and it turns out he made like a shit ton of metal water bottles, and he's like, "We're set, we're gonna win this race."
And they're all like, "Yeah!" I gotta talk. Yeah, that motivation behind it is just like the funniest thing.
It
I just
is.
think that they play it because basically, as we talked about, this enemy, the guy on the green hair guy, his name's not even important because he doesn't play that much of a factor in the story. But he's like a surprise antagonist that comes in for like a 6 or 7 episode arc in the second season, and you find out he's turned basically evil because the year before in the race he cracked his water bottle, like you said, and he turned to the ace of the Hakone Academy and asked, "Could you lend me one of your water bottles?" Please. And like the stone faced dude like looks at him and is like, "I can't do that." And then it was like literally him dying, like, "No, I have to win for my team."
That's so true.
It's like if like Batman and the Joker, like if the Joker became the Joker because someone cut him off in traffic. Like it's just like so menial.
That's so true. I think that's the thing about the show is like they like I said, there's a lot of low stake things in here that they really mined for drama, and that little low stakes thing was that was one of those things. And it was funny. I think in that same episode or maybe an episode later, it was like there was a comment because we watched these on Crunchyroll, right? There was like the top comment. It said like let's say the guy's name was like Hakone or whatever, or no, not Hakone. Let's say
I could find out.
Yeah, let's see if I can pull it up real quick. I'm on the character page. There, his name is Machimiya. So the comment was like, 10 years later, Machimiya is now a CEO of a successful water bottle company. I just thought it was so funny. And it made me miss those things too. Like you don't really see this anymore in movies. I guess it's because I haven't really seen many nonfiction movies recently. But I remember back in like the 90s and the 2000s when they had these nonfiction movies, or even like fiction movies. They kind of joke about it, where like post credits or like during the credits, they show you like a still frame of like a character, and they'd be like, 10 years later, this person went on to invent the water gun or something like that, So I just thought that'd be funny if they had that in this anime.
Yeah, how about that, dude? Yeah. That is crazy. What else to talk about in the spoiler section? The one thing I want to say, one thing I was actually really disappointed in, like one of the faults of the show, I think, in the first few episodes, we meet, what's her name? Her name is Miki Kanzaki. She's like the female she's supposedly like the female lead, and she's like the team manager basically. Yeah. And she's really cool. Like I think she has the potential to be great. Like she's like fun, and she loves cycling so much. And I think there's a great moment when she hops out and like fixes his bike like super quickly, and then speeds off and like helps her. It's like I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm excited to see more of her. And then the show just completely does away with her. Like she's like not in at all. It's understandable because
they only use her for fan service at the very end.
It's bogus. I was like, oh man, but she was so cool.
She was cool. She was she kind of reminded me of like Natsu in a way, in the sense of like she was like a smart, supportive female lead that wasn't stupid kind of thing.
Yeah.
She was very like,
I think
straightforward.
She could have been like a Natsu if the show devoted more time to her.
Yeah. And I thought there was going to be like some kind of love subplot between her and Onoda, and that would have been cool to see. And they might do that in the next season because I guess there's this one show, it's Yowamushi Pedal Next Generation.
Next Generation, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess they continue the story, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think I really like that idea because also, as you said before, the second years have really good stories too. And the second years in this team, I think, are probably one of the more interesting second years in sports anime. That's kind of like, it's another trope, right? The first years, they're the main characters. The third years, they're the seniors. They're the mentors. And then the second years are kind of like like the awkward, like they don't really devote any attention to them. They're just sort of there as like purely support characters.
Yeah,
and
they
that's
don't know what
these
to do with
characters
them
are. They're
because they have
purely
to
support
devote. Yeah,
characters. But again, we still get to see their backstory, and they especially shine in the practice, the training camp, basically when they have to ride like 100 laps or whatever. I really like them. So yeah, I made a note about the second years, and I said like, man, wouldn't it be cool if like next year these guys were the next team captains? Because I thought they'd be really cool as like team captain. Like the dude that was like really strategic. He wasn't like the most talented or whatever, but he still really wanted to win, and
yeah,
he was able to like bring his really quiet friend up to speed by strategizing the best times to like go really fast and then like blocking the other team and that kind of thing. So I'm glad that this show goes on some more. Are you considering watching it?
I think so. I think that I'm curious to see where it goes. I know basically the gist is like I was going into the next generation is like a completely new thing, but it's like really what I've heard about it from our mutual friend Jared. It was just like it's not. It's basically the same thing. It's another school year and it's another inter high. So it's like the same environment with like a lot of the same characters. But and that at first that turned me off, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm kind of interested to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Inoda does as a second year, how everyone else does this as a second year, and like I said, seeing the new team captains and stuff. I think it could be an interesting show to watch, and I will definitely watch it if I have some time for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same deal with like Haikyuu. Like you know how we're talking like maybe they could pull this off. Like let's say they win the tournament or whatever in Haikyuu, and they go on to like the next season. Like,
Yeah.
would you want them to do the same thing?
Yeah, see, for Haikyuu is a little tough. I might say no for Haikyuu, but like here, I'm just like I'm kind of interested, like to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think Haikyuu, I think it builds very, very tall peaks. Like there's very huge peaks of emotion, whereas this show is entertaining to watch, but it doesn't really have that like adrenaline rush. It's just sort of like, oh, okay, cool. He passed him, but it's still engaging. But yeah, it doesn't have that sort of like intense, like all-in stakes sort of deal.
Yeah. I'm curious. Who is your favorite member on Hakone Academy?
Definitely it would have to be the abs guy, and I don't even know his name. He just says abs a lot. Abs. And he named his pecs Andy and Frank.
Izumida is his name.
Izumida, that's right, Izumida, yeah. I don't know. I just thought he was hilarious. He's another character too where I'm just like, man, this is anime right here. This is, a character that names his muscles and says abs when he pedals super hard on a bicycle. Like that's anime. That's what I love.
That's anime. Yeah. I really liked what's his name? Shinkei. He's the guy with the protein bar always in his mouth.
Oh yeah.
He was like the true sprinter. Then his backstory is that like he was a sprinter that he ran over a rabbit and then and he orphaned a baby rabbit and he took it under his wing. But then he has like a monster locked inside of him. Like he becomes like when he releases it, he becomes like Mitsuji. It's pretty.
Yeah, he does. He's sticking his tongue out and shit.
But oh man, I also want to talk about how Monami. Monami is basically Onoda's rival. Like he's like that one, the guy who has like wings and like he feels nature to like he knows when a gear shifts because the wind's coming and he goes.
Yeah.
But like, that dude's a sociopath or a psychopath when you boil it down to it, because he's like I don't feel anything. Like what is it like to live? I want the bike to like feel alive and stuff. Like he's griefy when you strip away everything.
Yeah, and he has those creepy eyes at the end when he starts getting into it.
Yeah,
like sort of soulless, like focus on victory kind of thing. Yeah, he's a little weird. I would say I didn't really like the rivalry between Onoda and Monami. I think that's actually that would be one of my critiques of the show, is that like there's so many great rivalries in this show.
Yeah.
That I think it's a shame that the main one between Onoda and Monami, it's not as satisfying. And that those last few episodes, when it's just him and Monami, when they're the only ones duking it out, I just wasn't invested anymore for some reason. Like when it was anyone else, like for example, like Makishima, and I think his rival's name was like Todo or something like that. No, wait, that's his name. No.
Yeah, Todo. Todo is Todo and Makishima, the pompous guy. Yeah.
Oh, right. So that is his name. Okay, yeah.
Man, that rivalry is great.
Yeah, that was a really great one, and that was like on the second day, right?
Yeah.
And I felt so much more for that than I did for the finale of the show. And I guess this is just also just a testament to the way the last section of the show is laid out, because I think, again, we were saying how the anime works because of all these characters and their interactions, but once you get to the end of the race, when there's not many characters left actually racing, it kind of fails. It kind of falls apart. Like my interest level in it goes down.
Yeah,
in relation to how many characters are on screen, I guess.
Yeah, Onida and Monami, you're right, does not have the most interesting of rivalry compared to everybody. Even Kinjo and the ace of Hakone,
Stoneface guy,
Fukutomi.
Yeah.
Fukutomi is like that rivalry is great because there's so much depth and background to it. Like that's one of my favorite moments is when you find out Kinju's backstory about how the year before Fukutomi, like on the other team, like grabbed him like out of like just out of shame, basically. Like he grabbed him and they both fell and they both crashed, and Hakone still won and Shoku didn't, and then Kinjo like took the fall for it, basically. Like he said it was my fault, and then Fukutomi came up, and like their rivalry was great. And like, but then he also like he wouldn't throw the race to him, Fukutomi. Like the next year, he's like, next year, pedal your hardest. I have to prove that I'm strong, like that I can beat you at the best. So like, don't you dare like be anything better so I can beat you. It's like that's a great foundation for a rivalry.
It is.
Onida and Monami, like they're together because
they're friendly. They're friends.
Yeah, sure. He gave him a water bottle or something?
Yeah,
Return my water bottle. Man, this whole show is focused around water bottles.
Damn. I wonder if there's any like subliminal messaging on like the branding. There's definitely Pepsis.
Pepsis? Yeah, Pepsis.
I'll buy you a Pepsi.
Thanks, bro.
But yeah, it does suck that and that's kind of the thing that I'm worried about next, I guess the next season or the next generation or whatever it's called. The main character rivalry is going to be between Onoda and Monami.
Yeah, a lot of these third years are gone.
Yeah, because Monami, he's like, when the third year's lost, they're like, you have to make sure that we win the next year's inner high. And so I feel like a lot of that's going to fall on Monami.
will still be there.
That's true.
Can we talk about him? Okay, what I didn't like about Mitsuji's arc is that at the end of the first season, he's beaten and he's going to go home. And then like, you know, the first few episodes, then he comes back. Then Onida stupidly like re-encourages him to come back.
Oh yeah.
Like he basically inspires him again to come back. Like he would have been gone and then that threat would have been eliminated.
That's true.
And then he comes back, but I don't see how he changed. Like he was back to, you're right. He was back to his old self. Like I was expecting him to be like slightly different, but he really wasn't. He was just more crazy.
That's a good point. I guess, yeah, in the non-spoiler section, I was kind of praising that he didn't change at all, but that is a good point too. I think that is sort of to his detriment that we didn't really see like why exactly he came back. Like I think it's very up in the air and very kind of like, I guess it's up to the viewer to interpret why he came back. I think it was like because Onoda said something like he liked writing because it was fun, and then what's his face? Mitsuji was like, fun? This is really gross. He says that a lot. Gross. And then suddenly, yeah, Wikazumi. Grosuji.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, you're right. There's not really an explanation for why he came back. He still treats his teammates like shit. Oh, also like his teammate, like the original captain of Kyoto, Fushimi, like he's like, yeah, you inspired me, Mitsuji. Yeah. You're the reason we're getting this far. I have to thank you so much. He's being so nice to this guy that basically used him. I don't understand that.
It doesn't at all. It's so great because it's a really dramatic moment. It's like, Mitsuji, you must go on because you are strong. You are the ace. Yeah. I will launch you to victory, but you must win. It's like, it's a speech saved for a protagonist, but he's doing it to launch a villain. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And afterwards, yeah, but you're right. Mitsuji's just like, oh, that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing, and I can't tell if I would like it if Mitsuji was like, because there's that part where the original captain was like, can you ride with my tag to the finish line? And then Mitsuji's like, no. Like, I wonder if it would have been cool to like, I think it would have been a cool reveal, like if he's riding off after that scene, you don't get to see if he takes it or not, and at the very end, as he's like eating shit, you know, he falls off his bike, you see that like back then he did actually take that tag and he put it in his pocket or whatever. I think that would have been very cool, actually. Right. You know what? Cool. I think I would have liked that.
I think that would have given a good arc to his character, because then he just crashes and burns. and
then you know, wouldn't it? I mean, who knows? They might actually do this, but like in the next season, in the next generation, he's still like evil and like gross and shit, but like he actually has the legit respect and you know, camaraderie of like his own team. So instead of like one Midosuji, it's a whole team of Midosujis all being gross together.
There was one on the team on his team where it was like Midosuji light, like he was kind of drawn in like similar ways and he kind of talked like him, and then Midosuji went up to him and was like, I see a lot of potential in you.
Yeah. That was an interesting character overall, because like he was the character that was basically copying the captain, because in one of the flashbacks of Kyoto Fushimi, that same character, he was like copying the hairstyle of like one of the original captain guy.
Yeah.
And then when Suji became the captain, he like copied like everything. He like the way he smiles, like his hairstyle and stuff. So yeah, that was a weird character.
I guess another thing I want to mention in the spoiler section is like I thought Naruko was kind of short shafted in that final section. Like his final arc is just like, I'm gonna climb, and then like Naruko stop climbing. He's like, I'm gonna do it. Like, okay, you could calm down a little bit now. It's like the crowd loves me. It's like, okay, you don't have to go that fast. We can switch off a little bit if you want. It's like, no, we're going, and then he basically dies. Like he goes blind.
I thought that was the funniest thing when he was like, I'm losing my vision. All I could see is the white line.
Yeah.
Onoda, please tell me when there's any turns coming up.
Yes.
And then Onoda's like, okay, I'll do it.
It's
like, you could just, chill. Sit down and go to the back maybe for a little bit. You have two climbers here. You got Onoda and Imazumi.
Yeah, like I get it, like because it helps them save their strength for that final push. So he did it.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I would have like. And like his arc, his only rivalry is really with his own teammate, like Todoroki, which is one of the funniest moments I thought of the show was just like the first sprinter's checkpoint against Abs, and like he's riding, and then it's like they're gonna come up to me from. They're smart. They're going to preserve their energy one at a time and then try to overcome. And he looks back, and then they're just both riding at full speed trying to pass one another. It's like, oh, they're idiots. Like they don't even care.
Yeah, great characters in the show. I have to ask you, what did you think of the ending? Were you happy that Onoda won? Do you think that was a fitting end? When he passed Monami and basically took it home for the team? Because I can tell you what I think about it. Like, I think on the one hand, like, as much as I like Onoda, he's kind of, I don't know if Mary Sue is the right word, but like he's kind of the character that's like really good at everything. Like he pulls off miracles. He does the impossible. Faster. Yeah, exactly. That's all he does is he just pedals faster. So from that perspective, it's kind of like cheap, I guess. But on the other hand, I guess I like him enough and I like these characters enough to where if he didn't win, it would have been a very sad ending. And I don't know if I would have actually liked that.
I could see it in two ways, because one, I like because they play it as, okay, he's struggling, but he's not winning for himself. He's winning for his new friends, because now he's found his friendship and he's not going to let them down no matter what. It's like, okay, I like that. But then also it probably would have been great if he does lose, right? And he thinks he's let down his team and his new friend, but then he finds that his friends are still supportive of him. And they tried their hardest, and they're still friends, and they still go to Akiba together because they're still friends. Like I think there's some, there's something there. So I think either one works. I like that he won. I invested 60, gosh darn, episodes to this. Like he better goddamn win.
Yeah, that's a good point. This was a long anime to watch. I'm glad that most sports animes aren't this long, actually.
Yeah. What was your favorite moment?
My favorite moment. I don't know. Do you have one?
I yeah, absolutely.
All right, go ahead.
It's the second day. Todoroki has fallen behind because of stomach problem. Because Todoroki is like, he was in the wrong. No one calls Todoroki out on his shit like that. He was like, dude, you had a stomach problem. You endangered this whole team like by doing this. And we're like, we need Todoroki here. And so he's fallen behind, and then Onoda's given the task to like bring him back. And he's like, okay. Yeah. And so then they're pedaling, and then it's like, Todoroki, do you want to like sing to like raise our spirits? And like, what? And it's like it's that whole scene of them singing the theme song to Love Hime. It's like Hime, Hime, Hime. It's like all you have to do is say princess, and it's like I don't have to just say princess. I have to sing the verses too. Like, oh, it's a round. And then like the Hime, 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 Hime. and they pass like random dudes. Like, did they just pass me while they were singing?
Mm-hmm.
And then like after like Todoroki was so hesitant at first, but then like just a few minutes later, like afterwards, it's like, hey, Onoda, should we sing to raise our spirits?
Yeah.
Like, it's my
That one-
favorite moment. It's cemented that it's just like this moment is great. It's that might be one of my top 3 moments in like any anime we've seen.
Mhm.
Like I would say top 3, top 5.
That's a good one. That might actually see. Dang, I wish I said that. That one, I feel like that one would be mine as well. I think also I like the fact that that wasn't the only time they referenced it. I think there was one little like off, those little subplot things at the end when like who is it? Like Onoda starts singing and he's singing with Imazumi, or no, he's singing with Naruko, and then suddenly Tadakoro starts singing. They're on the bathhouse. Tadakoro starts singing. And then even like Kinjo knows the words for some reason.
Yeah, he does.
And then Imazumi is like humming in the water, and then Makashima was like the only one that's like, "What? Does everyone know this song?"
Yeah.
And then he starts getting into it too. That was And then at the very end too, when they're in Akiba, and then Tadakoro's like, "This is the song I've been singing." He like looks at the CD. I guess that's a good one. I'll give you another one of mine, or one of mine. I don't know if it tops that one because that one is a good one. That one might be my favorite as well. But I would say I really liked. Again, this is on the second day as well. I liked Makishima and Toto's race.
Yeah.
Because they built that rivalry up so well. Like he was like they like one of them won one race, the other one won the other, and this was like their final time to like to race each other. And then it was like when Makishima, or like when Toto rides off and he's all sad and he's like, oh man, I'm never gonna be able to settle the score with him. And then Makishima, or like someone catches up to him and he's like, Makishima, and it's not him.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, and then Makishima catches up and then they start racing. And I think that was a very good, like one of the highlights of the show in terms of like the resolution of the rivalry too. Because a lot of the rivalries, they kind of keep going.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like the end of it. Like,
yeah,
because
it's like, oh, we only have this. This is our last time to do it. Which I didn't. It's like I didn't quite play for. It's like, what about the third day? Like you have like another day to do this.
Yeah,
but I guess that's
point.
not important.
Yeah, I guess the climbing. Oh well, no, because the third day the climbing checkpoint is the end of the race.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I guess they were counting on them not taking it home for the team because usually the ace does that and stuff. So. Oh, and then another one, I guess. Another one-off subplot is like when I guess Naruko, he's like the DJ of the school, and he's all like, "This one is requested by Imazumi, and this is a soundtrack from a movie, and it looks like it's like a love song or something." And he puts in the CD, and it's the wrong CD. It's the Love Hime soundtrack, and starts playing on the intercom, and Imazumi's like panicking.
I love everything with the Love Hime song. Every element of it is great.
Yeah, it was a very good subplot.
Even the subplot that ends, like the episode, like it seems like Season 2 of Love Hime introduce new antagonists. It's like, but like it makes it look like it's part of Yowamushi Pedal. Like you're like, what are you watching for a second? It's like, oh, Love Hime Season 2. It's like, oh, that's what I was watching.
Yeah. It's like a real show. I feel like they wrote whole episodes of that show to make it so believable. I would watch it.
I would too.
I would watch.
I'd watch the hell out of it.
Shall we talk about our MVPs?
Yeah. Should we get out of spoiler section?
Yeah, I think it's a good time too.
Okay.
Okay, let us end the spoiler section in 3, 2, 1. We're back from the spoiler section into non-spoiler pure territory.
If you didn't listen to the spoiler section, watch Yowamushi Pedal and go back to listen to that spoiler section because it was a great time.
Such a good time. You'll miss out on the rest of your life if you don't do it. So now we're going to be going into a new section of our podcast. It's the MVP section, in which we basically talk about our favorite character of the show. Kobe, who is your MVP for Yowamushi Pedal?
My MVP for this episode is Kinjo, and Kinjo is the third-year captain of the team. And he was the character. We didn't do this MVP character before, like this section before, and it caused us to go back and do an MVP episode. But watching Kinjo interact was what first made me think, like, man, he is the MVP of this show. He's not my favorite character. He's not, in my opinion. But he's, as we mentioned before, he's the rock, and he is just a great captain of captains, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's very intense, and he's driven, and he holds the team together, and he's very inspired to win, but he's also very supportive and, like, encouraging of his teammates, and brings out the best of, like, the rest of his team. Like, without Kinjo, the whole team falls apart. What makes the best MVP is one that is absolutely essential, but also, like, it's like you probably wouldn't miss, like, if all of a sudden he didn't show up. Like he doesn't do well on his not he doesn't do well on his own. What I mean to say is, like, he blends in really well with the rest of the ensemble. He works as, like, the how to do a biking metaphor here, like the grease on the gear. Like, he keeps everything moving, like, really well.
He's a greasy boy.
Kinjo is a greasy boy. But I love Kinjo just because of his humor side with all of his magic subplots. But also I love his rivalry with Fukutomi, and I also love his supportive nature to Unada, and his mentor relationship with Wikazumi, whatever the main what's his name? Imazumi, Imazumi. His mentor relationship with Imazumi. And then when you learn about his backstory, about how he fell, and just everything with him, everything that was revealed about his backstory just, like, proves what a great character he is, and that's what cemented the show. One of its first elements of just, like, this is a really good show. So that's why Kinjo is my MVP. Who's yours?
My MVP, yeah, you're right about Kinjo. He is the captainiest of captains, as I like to call it. He's like the prototype captain. He's like the captain from which other captains are chiseled off of. So yeah, he's a great captain. My MVP though for the show is Mito Tsuji.
Ooh,
so we praise a lot
villain?
Mito Tsuji. Yeah, so you know me, I love a good villain in any show, movie, media, anything, and we talked a lot about how Mito Tsuji brought, like, he basically brings this new flavor to the show. Like, every time he's on the screen, I feel like the show becomes something different and something exciting, but also something, like, weird. Like, whenever you see a move, it's, like, gross and, like, ew, like, yuck. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is why I love sports anime, or, like, just anime in general, that you can have just fucking crazy characters in an otherwise grounded show, and for it to still hold together and to still work as a medium. And for that, I love Mito Tsuji because they executed him so well when they could have gone off the deep end, basically. So yeah, he would be, like I said, up there in my top 3 villains of all time for sports anime.
Wow.
And maybe even anime in general. I don't know, haven't thought about it yet, but yeah, I like Mito Tsuji a lot.
Yeah, looking back at all the animes we watched, like, the villains really aren't that memorable to, like, a lot of them. Sure, I think there's Okiawa in Haikyuu, I think, is great. The Great King, and then yeah, Mito Tsuji is definitely going to be memorable. I find myself, not every day, but every so often, like, saying when someone does something like it's like a sucker, or like when someone doesn't merge over in traffic in time, and like, or like he doesn't make a turn, I just whisper to myself, like, "Weekazumi," like, I say that.
Oh man,
and it's just,
that's great.
It's fantastic. So you're right, Mito Tsuji does bring a whole new energy to the show that I think could have been out of this world and could have totally broke this anime for me, but he was able to rein it back in. And I finished the anime faster than you. Like, I finished it, so it's like I had some time to, like, think about it, and I think at the end of it, like, I was like, okay, this is ending, but now, like, just talking about it as much as we have, and, like, remembering it more so than just digesting it, it's like I'm thinking more fondly of it, and of Mito Tsuji in general. Like, you're right, Mito Tsuji is a great villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there we go. Those are our MVPs for Yowamushi Pedal. And now we're going to move on to the final section, in which we rate the shows. We rate shows on a scale of 1 through 5. We will give our rating and then explain what that rating means to you. So, Kobe, what did you give Yowamushi Pedal?
Can you go first? I'm actually still deciding.
Still digesting it?
I'm still digesting.
Okay. Shit. I'm kind of digesting it too. But hang on. I guess I'll
the show. We hyped it up. Like, I think going into this, I might have, like, had a lower score for it, and, like, but just, like, remembering it and talking about it with you, it's like, man, no, it actually might be a little higher. Okay,
so. Okay, I I am going to give this a 4 out of 5. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. And a 4 out of 5 on this show means you like this anime and you like it so much that you're going to spend money on it, whether it be through figurines or buying the show itself. Basically, it's a show that you're sort of proud of to have owned the product of. And that's what I give this show. I give the show a 4 because I guess mostly because it surprised me. It surprised me like how well I actually liked it. I don't think it had the strongest ending, but at the end of the day, I enjoyed watching it. I loved the characters. The bike racing was fun to watch, and I think it's an above average sports anime overall. So I give it a 4 out of 5, and I would love to have a figurine of like, I don't know, a Noda or something, just like riding a bike with like the
inspiring,
thing in his back. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I was really debating between a 3.5 and a 4, but you're right. I think this is a 4 out of 5 anime because of the characters, because of the strength of the characters. This anime is long. It's almost 60 episodes, as we said like a million times. But I think it easily could have been probably 50 and still got the point across, or 2 25-episode seasons instead of 38 episodes and then another 24. Easily could have been 50, and I think you still got the gist of everything. But at the core of everything, the characters are so strong. Like I would buy individual figurines of a lot of these characters because I like the characters themselves so much. Not just what they represent, but for who they are as people and because they're so well developed and fleshed out. And if more animes devoted time to the characters like Yowamushi Pedal, then I wouldn't mind. So I think I agree with you that this is a 4 out of 5 anime.
Awesome. We both give it a 4 out of 5. I think that doesn't happen usually. We're usually off by like a half a point or something like that. But yeah, this is a solid anime. I recommend it if you just want to watch a solid sports anime. If you like biking, even better. It's like we said a lot of times, it's a long anime, but I think it's definitely a show that you can sort of enjoy over a long period of time. Like I think Kobe finished it a lot faster than I did, so I had some time to sort of like kind of watch it on like a 2 episode per day kind of basis, and I think that's like perfect for a long show like this. Just like kind of watching it.
Some nights I binge like 7 or 8 episodes.
Yeah,
and it's just like this bingey. It's like you go through the episodes. It's good for that too. Like I got to see them reach this goddamn checkpoint.
Yeah. And like I said, it's well, I think I said this in the spoiler section, but it's a very Dragon Ball Z, like Ball Z, Ball Z-ish.
Dragon Ball Z.
It's Dragon Ball Z-ish in that it drags out moments, but not in a way that's like annoying. I guess maybe a little bit sometimes towards the end, but like. It's not bad. It's a great anime. That's all I'm trying to say.
Cool.
So yeah, we did it. That's the end of our Yowamushi Pedal episode. Where can they find us, Kobe?
You can find us on Twitter. We're at The Nerd Blaze. You can find us on YouTube. If we post, do we post? No, we don't post them. No, we don't post them on YouTube anymore. Or we do. I don't know. We're changing things. Anyway, you can find our podcast on things like Spotify, on iTunes. You can rate and review. And basically where any podcast is available, you'll be able to find us.
We've also got like a Libsyn website. That's kind of like the easiest way to like collect to see all of to see the backlog of episodes. And yeah, it's just Anime Ricochet Libsyn. You can Google it. You'll find it.
You'll find us.
Cool. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. We will see you guys next month for who knows what. We don't have a sports anime lined up, I don't think. But
we don't. I thought we did. I thought we were going to watch season 2 of Kuroko no Basuke.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I said
it. The anime that we didn't really like that much. We're gonna watch season 2 of. I think because
I said it. Now I guess we have to do it.
Yeah. It's a popular show, so we want to see if we can see what other people.
Because we don't right now.
Yeah, we do not. And yeah, hopefully see you guys then. And see you next time.
Bye.